Welcome to the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast Vlog. I'm Sean. I'm your host. And let me adjust. I want to edit. Who gives a fuck? I'm Sean. I'm your host. And it's Saturday, so you know what that means. It's time for the wrestling report. I'll be honest. I'm recording this Friday night. And I did not catch any of the clips from SmackDown, so I can't comment on what happened there. I really didn't pay any attention to Raw. So, I know the draft ended. I don't think there was any, from what I saw, any big splashes, anything that makes you go, ooh, with the draft. I think it's just a way of creating a rating and shuffling the deck a little bit. But overall, nothing spectacular that I thought required comment. I didn't watch SmackDown also. I have no idea what happened. That said, though, I did watch AEW Dynamite this week and Rampage not too long ago today. So, big show. It's in Philadelphia, which is the home of ECW. They weren't in the bingo hall. They weren't the ECW arena. They were, I think, on the Temple. So probably the field house or the where the basketball team plays. I'm sure. Looked like a nice arena. But but there is definitely an ECW vibe to AEW that I like. And from that standpoint, what I mean is, I think, number one, the crowd is always a part of the show. If you go back to the 90s with ECW, the crowd was a part of the show. I was fortunate enough to be in that crowd many times for house shows at the Ross Draver Ice Garden, but also, I was at the 1997 November to Remember at the Beaver County Beaver Dome, which is a place, but it was, as we recall, the main event of that was Shane Douglas against Bam Bam Bigelow for the ECW title, Bigelow being the champion. Douglas wins the belt back, but destroys his elbow, so it's a bittersweet win. In a lot of ways, but it was a big night. A night I'll never forget. I mean, that was at the time ECW's biggest crowd, and they had bigger after that. But it was their biggest crowd ever. That place was packed to the rafters. Even though it was November, it was hot in that building. I'm sure the lighting, a lot of the lighting had something to do with that. But it was just, there was so many people in that building, and it wasn't well ventilated, and it just trapped the heat. I remember it being very, very warm. But it was a really cool night, and the crowd was a big part of that. And I remember, so as I watch AEW, the crowd is always a big part of those shows, and I think the pandemic hurt AEW a lot because those crowds were so hot. You go back to the first Double or Nothing, you go back to the first All Out, those crowds were electric. You go back to Revolution, the first Revolution, where Jericho lost the belt to Moxley, where Cody lost to MJF. That was a very, very hot crowd. I mean, it just electric and a major league part of the show. So I think there are the crowd of AEW. I think it showed at Double or Nothing this year. I think it showed at All Out this year. Crowd, especially a big crowd like you had for All Out, can really be a big part of their show. And so with you being in Philadelphia for Dynamite and Rampage, especially in some of the bigger matches, on Rampage, the CM Punk match, the crowd was very into that because it's CM Punk. You know, some of the matches on Dynamite. You know, it was a big reception. You know, the opening match, the 8-man tag match. That crowd was on fire. You know, so it is one of those things where the crowd helps elevate a show. I didn't think Dynamite or Rampage were anything overly special. I think they've done better shows. I think the 8-man match was very good. I thought you had some good combinations in there. You saw Jungle Boy with Adam Cole again. You got to see Danielson and Omega go at it again. You got some nice combination. I mean, you know, Luchasaurus had his moment. The Christian Cage Spike Pile Driver was a big deal. So a lot of interesting things taking place with that match as far as that feud goes, like the Super Elite against, you know, this they're not it's not really a faction. I mean, you got the Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, the Express there, the Jurassic Express. But I mean, you know, Christian Cage isn't officially a part of that, and of course Bryan Danielson isn't. But it's an interesting combination of those four. You throw in Frankie Kazarian as a fifth man. But those, you know, those combinations of guys are very interesting against the Super Elite. The big match at the end, the Casino Battle Royal ladder match. I thought that was a really good match. I really enjoyed that a lot. I don't think it was a major surprise that Hangman Adam Page was the Joker. I don't think it was a major surprise that he won either. You know, again, it goes back to what I've been saying and many people have been saying, that, you know, Hangman has to beat Kenny Omega for the world title. Like this feud with Bryan Danielson, Christian Cage, these guys, it's been great. It's given, I mean, the 30-minute draw was must-see TV. But at the same time, I would say, you know, I mean, clearly this is the match we all want, and now we even have time to build to it a little bit. You know, you don't have to rush into it. You can play. You know, they did the interview with Tony Schiavone during Rose from the Top. If you didn't see that, where Tony was kind of trying to ask Hangman about it. He was just like, "Hey, I just want to have some beers and enjoy the moment." You know, he's still kind of ducking the whole I have to face Kenny Omega thing again, which is a nice callback. And you know, you go back to the elimination match with the Dark Order against the Elite and their failure there, and so it makes sense that he would kind of be like, okay, I won this match, but I don't want to face Kenny Omega, but he's going to have to, and that'll take you right into full gear. And so you can have this Omega Danielson feud continue for a bit before you have to go into Adam Page. And you know, I'm intrigued to see how they kind of treat what he does. You know, I think it's one of those things where, like, we as fans are very interested in how this storyline ends. You know, the ending has to be the big match, the pay-per-view match of Hangman beating Kenny and finally claiming his glory that he's earned over these past 2 years. The rise and fall and rise again of Hangman Adam Page. You know, I'm not going to call, I hate saying it's unfortunate timing, but, you know, the birth of his child, that's more important. I certainly don't blame him for saying, hey, I can't I can't do this right now. Because that would have gone down at All Out. That would have been, the 2-year anniversary of him losing to Jericho. That would have been serendipitous. But I want to see how this ends, and I want to see how they kind of finish it with the last chapter leading into that fight, and so that certainly has my attention. The unveiling of the TBS Championship for the women's division. I'll be very honest. I think I've heard some people say it's a bad idea. They would have rather seen a tag team division built. And I get that, but I look at the WWE women's tag team division, and there is none. It's usually just two people kind of put together, like, because Vince doesn't care about tag teams, and so there's no real tag team division, and I don't think the women's division is deep enough that you could build strict tag teams like you have in the men's division. There are teams that are just that they are teams. It's the Young Bucks, it's the Lucha Brothers, it's FTR, it's Santana and Ortiz, it's the Best Friends, it's the Acclaimed, it's Private Party. There are a number of these are tag teams, and I think that's what makes a tag team division better. So just putting a willy-nilly women's tag team division or title, I prefer this because it's going to allow you to develop more singles. I think you can go back to, like, in the WWF, when the Intercontinental title was a title that was a stepping stone to, like, okay, now you're ready. You're ready to take that next step. How do you do here, so we can see how we think you're going to perform here. And I definitely think the TBS title has an opportunity to be that in the women's division. We can have more than one women's feud at a time. Get that more in the forefront a little bit. Maybe have more than one women's match on a show. That's been a major criticism of AEW. Is they have a ton of matches, but there's only one women's match. So, while I know Dark and Elevation have multiple women's matches, you may want to try to elevate some of that talent to the national TV exposure, because a lot of times you look at these women, and like Chris Statlander racked up a ton of wins when she went into All Out to face Britt Baker, but you never saw her because she was always on Dark or Elevation. She was never on Dynamite, and not everybody watches YouTube, believe it or not. My stats say so. Yeah, so you have a situation here where I think you could, definitely, elevate some talent a little bit. You can use the title to create more storylines for the women's division, have more women's matches on TV, and kind of start to present contenders not only for the TBS title but also for the world title. Jade Cargill is another example. Like, you look at her and she's racked up a ton of wins, but all those wins have been on Dark and Elevation. Very few have been on Rampage or Dynamite. We saw her tonight on Dynamite. It was a 2-minute squash match. Does anybody really think she's ready for the bright lights of Britt Baker? No. That's why they're gonna have her feud with Thunder Rosa. So Thunder Rosa can take those bright lights to Britt Baker. So it's one of those things where I think the TBS title is going to be a very good thing for their women's division, and hopefully elevate some of that talent that is there, and allow us to see a bit more of it grow. So I think that's it. That's all I got. Wasn't a ton. Like I said, like I didn't watch SmackDown and didn't pay much attention to Raw. So there you go. That's the wrestling report for this week. And don't forget to check out our podcast, the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast. We are all over the place. Very, very easy to find. Just search Pittsburgh Nerd, and you'll probably find us on some of your favorite podcatchers. Also, find us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Pittsburgh Nerd. We're right there, and again, really, really easy to find. It's amazing how that works. So, on that note, the Dreamer has awakened.